Hello, hello. Okay, so I think we're ready. Well, hello everybody, and welcome here to this Eve for Everyone panel. We're super happy to see that there are this many of you here, really wanting to make Eve Online a place where everyone can come together as they are and share their passion for all things Eve. I'm going to keep introductions just short and sweet, so without further ado, we have all of our incredible panelists who are joining us here today because of all of their efforts that they are putting into EVE Online to make it for everyone. Yes. So I'd like to start on this slide here. We have Cashel, a former CSM member and the CEO of EVE Rookies. Woo. Woo. And next to her, we have the leader of Be Nice, Yvette Bicot, which is, which is, in their own words, the gayest corp in wormhole space. Yes. And next to me here, we have Jintan, who is, amongst many other things, the organizer of the Charity Cup. Yes. And then next to me, we have Rain, who is, leads the women's only community in EVE. And when I say women, I mean that in the most inclusive sense of the word here. Yeah. Yes. Then on the CCP side, we are joined here by CCP Mercury, a talented senior, yes, you can clap. She's a talented senior UI UX designer and whose work impacts the accessibility of EVE Online. And next to her, we have game design director, CCP Okami. Yes. Who has more than 20 years of experience in the games industry and joined us here a little while ago. And then there's me. I'm CCP Moss, and I'm a talent acquisition specialist, so I do everything hiring related at CCP, and I will be your moderator for today. Yes. So just to kind of kick us all off, I want to start off just to hear a little bit more about, what has your personal experience been with inclusivity and accessibility inside of EVE Online? So does anyone want to kick us off?
So EVE Rookies came about because way back when I was a brand new pilot about 5 years ago, I went to go out on an MPSI fleet, and I actually had the FC of the fleet tell me I couldn't fly with them because I couldn't fly their doctrine. So as I went through a year later, I decided that I'm going to create a organization, public organization, where anyone can come and fly with us. It doesn't matter who they are, who they fly with in space, they're never going to get turned away from our fleets. So that's where the whole inclusivity means so much to me.
I can go next. So I started the Women's Only Discord. It sounds very weird, but it actually originated from a PvP battle where we had a bunch of women and a bunch of men, and we all PvP'd, and then the event was over, and for some reason the men deleted their Discord. So we have the Women's Only Discord, and I don't think a men's only one exists because they deleted it for some reason, but we run it since, I believe, 2018, and it's women, femme presenting, trans women, pretty much everyone is welcome, so that's how we do it.
My experiences with inclusivity are a little different. I've never run a community. I know a lot of people think I have, but that's not something I've ever done. But as an FC, as within Providence and a number of other organizations, I've found ways to involve people who are hard of hearing or who have other disabilities that people might think would preclude them from taking part in fleet and other social combats, and brought them to the real forefront. And one of the stories I actually wanted to tell is about Yvonne, who was, I don't know if she's here, I've not talked to her in many years, but she was one of the best scouts in Providence, and she was completely deaf. And through working with other people in my fleet to relay commands to her, she was able to just go out, work independently, find targets for us every time we went out hunting. And that's kind of the key thing I want to talk about in terms of inclusivity. It's about not just giving people the ability to take part. It's about giving people the room to excel with their skill sets and to bring EVE to them. EVE is a game that has so many different ways of engaging with it that no matter what impediments you might have or what special accommodations you might need, you can not only take part, you can be the best at what you do.
So Be Nice, I didn't start Be Nice, but I joined, I guess, relatively soon after. And it was initially started because a couple folks were looking for corps to play with that they could be like open with. And a lot of times, even if groups say they're accepting, you end up getting asked a lot of kind of goofy questions in comms and things like that if you're open about yourself. So they went out to Wormhole Space and started a corp that was explicitly a queer corp. And from there, it's just kind of continued to grow. And it's become a really good space, not only just for queer folks, but kind of just anyone who was looking for a nice place to play the game in Wormholes and kind of in that online area. I think of it a lot kind of as like the third place, because you spend a lot of time playing MMOs and games and things like that, and it's an interesting balancing act between having a community where you can chat and talk to everyone, but also actually trying to succeed at the game and at EVE as a whole. So I think it's been really rewarding, not only to be able to be openly queer myself and have other queer folks there, but just kind of all sorts of friends and different people. And over time, we've had it, grow to outside of Wormholes with Prismatic Legion as well. So it's, I think, a very rewarding, friendly thing, and inclusivity ultimately kind of leads to just better community overall, not just like niche communities, but just in general. I think it helps benefit the community. Yeah.
And as a little follow-up questions here to you players, could you maybe share any specific examples of how the game has positively impacted your ability to play or even feel represented inside of the community?
Yeah, so I can talk about that. So I'm both bisexual and I'm autistic, and through my experiences working with CCP across, the past decade and a half now, I've gained the confidence in both myself and the people around me to support me that I can do presentations like this, and I can look at a crowd of 200 people and it doesn't scare me because I know that everyone in this crowd is a wonderful person and wants to do better for the world. And that's something that EVE can teach you, and something that is a reason why inclusivity is important, because the skills that you develop in EVE, they aren't quite the same as the skills you develop in other video games. You're not just boosting your APM, you're not learning build paths on Ash, you're learning about how to communicate well, you're learning about how to build communities, and you're learning about how to lead, and you're learning about how to be a fundamentally good person, because that's what wins in EVE. We talk a lot about how evil EVE is and how the best people are all these megalomaniacs and stuff like that, but that's not really the case. When you talk to these people, they're social, they're lovely, they're builders, and they want everyone to have a good time, because that's what makes a community that you want to be a part of. So I hope that's a message that people can take away from this. Build a community that you would want to be part of, and you will find wonderful people who think just the same way come to you.
Anyone else like to add to this before we jump forward?
So in EVE Rookies, anyone can come and play. And we get a lot of people who everywhere across the spectrum, every ability. And we actually have one guy who the only thing he can move is his eyes, his mouth, and he can kind of twitch a finger. And he came to us thinking that he was only going to be able to kind of shoot things. He never dreamed that he would make it all the way up to leadership. And one day he figured out how to tag. Then he figured out how to FC. He even figured out how to multi-box. And we were all kind of like, what? But
Just can't do that.
But it just shows that if you give people the room to actually try, they can do really amazing things. So yeah, just step aside and let people try. If you have elite requirements and skills, maybe it's time to skill it, put it down a little bit and just let people come in and fly with you.
I think a big thing for me was initially starting. I played the game alone actually for about 6 months because I just didn't really want to talk to people like I did because I installed an MMO, so of course there's the the social element there. But I spent a lot of time trying to learn and was very like worried about things, and then I'm finally like, okay, I'm gonna reach out, and I found a corp, and I found Be Nice, and I was like, okay, well this should at least be a friendly group of people. And I was like so prepared to go into the interview. And the first question they asked is, "What do you like to do in a fleet?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know actually." But getting to chat with all the folks there, and then kind of over the years develop not only like my skills in the game, but just kind of these like long friendships. Like ones that kind of exist and persist like outside of the game is extremely rewarding because you end up like when you log in, it's not a thing you feel like you have to do, right? It's not like a job per se. It's something that you want to do because you want to talk to your friends and play a game with them. And I think kind of being able to grow sort of socially in a very different way than I would be able to within my real life community, I suppose, has obviously been fairly rewarding. And being able to kind of speak about that now here is very interesting. It's a lot a lot of growth over a few years. And I think that those kinds of communities are generally helpful. And I've seen within our community too, a lot of folks who initially joined seemed very, they had gone in and out of different corps and always been sort of iffy about playing the game. But you notice once you get to a group of people that you actually really enjoy being around and speaking to and spending time with, that sometimes it just kind of makes the game and whatever you're doing a lot better and a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah. Something I want to touch on here for a moment, and this is a common theme between, I think, all of our stories here, is that we were all newbies once. Everyone in this room was a newbie once. Don't push them away. Even if they aren't able to do something right now, they will be able to do it in the future. And the people who are new today will be the leaders of the future of Eve, and they will contribute to the community. So when you see that excitement, don't crush it. Don't tell people to wait. Figure out how they can help and how they can help now.
I 100% agree, and I think that also even extends here, right? Like we're all nerds in a shared space, and I get it, it's weird. You don't know everybody. I don't know everybody here. You guys don't know me. But it's one of those things of like you go to a bar or karaoke or any of these events, you see someone staying there, talk to them. Maybe they want their alone time, or maybe they're just waiting for an invite. I get it. We're all socially awkward. But kind of that, but that community sense can go outside of the game, right? Which is why Fanfest is such a huge success.
So lovely. And I'd love to direct this next question here to the devs here. Could you maybe share any specific design or technological changes that have been made to improve the accessibility in EVE Online?
Sure. So, of course, with UI UX, a good part of our efforts is towards accessibility. So, for instance, features like being able to resize windows or change the font text size or scaling the UI, those are all accessibility features. Having the options of choosing different themes. We have a high contrast theme for color blindness. And then, of course, we design with accessibility in mind. So, for instance, copy and labels for call to actions like buttons are meant to be meaningful. So, for instance, if I were to design a window for a transaction, I wouldn't just label the button as continue or next, because those aren't meaningful. So if someone is using a text-to-speech application, for instance, wouldn't really get a lot of meaning from that button, but something like complete transactions or buy selected, those are more accessible terms, right? So this is something that we try to do across the whole UI. And of course, streamlining the experience as much as possible when we can also helps with accessibility of our content, especially the most complex systems. Okami?
Yeah, I think that's mainly your role, is looking at these things. So I have less to add here, but I think from my perspective, it's also taking a look, like EVE is a very old game, and there's a lot of content in it that may not be inclusive to people who are kind of joining now or may have been around for a while. So a lot of what I'm doing is just sort of auditing all of that content, whether it's old missions or just how we introduce the game to you, and make sure that it is as inclusive as possible. So we're constantly iterating on these things, maybe even revisiting old missions or getting rid of things from the game that might not be appropriate for today because it doesn't make people feel included. And it's always the challenging balance between trying to keep EVE dark and gritty and also inclusive. So that's kind of where I'm approaching things.
Lovely. Yes. And just to all of you here, what are some meaningful ways a community can foster inclusion for players who need accessibility accommodations?
Keep the toxicity out. There is no reason why you have to bring the nasty, dark, real-world stuff into a video game. It's not role-playing. It's not nice. It's not going to make people feel welcome. It's not going to make them feel included. There's just no reason that you ever have to do it. And it's hard. It's hard to be one of those people that are going to say, don't do it. It's hard to speak up. But if you do it, then the next person's going to be feeling brave. They're going to do it. Pretty soon you're going to be able to stamp it out.
Along with that, I think the easiest way to do it, if you have a community, is just like remove all politics. I feel like EVE is a very vast and in-depth game. If you want to discuss politics, talk about the Drifters and the Deathless and the Triglavians. You don't have to bring up insert random political topic here. So, like, I find that very easy if I just say, hey, no politics, or even like, hey, no, not safe for work, then I don't have to moderate it. And then we never have to deal with like the slow spiral into toxicity because some people say things they shouldn't. And so that's one of the things. I also think always, being like a woman, I always think, how would I phrase something? I know Eve is majority men, but how would I phrase something in a way that would also make women feel included? And so I just always like use very boring insults, but also very gender neutral terms, like folks, gender neutral term, idiot, like very like mundane insult, right? Like it's really fun saying idiot, especially if you had an accent to it. But it's one of those things where it's like, this goes on YouTube, we're not getting canceled on YouTube because it's a very very neutral insult. I guess it is gender neutral too, but yeah, that's one of those things where if you just kind of make things broad and like vague, one, it's kind of easier to do, but two, it's also like makes people feel included.
We really don't have to keep clapping after every point. I appreciate it though. But yeah, I from my perspective, the best thing that you can do, you know, to provide inclusivity is to volunteer, to do stuff. You know, if your FC isn't asking for someone to relay text commands in Fleet for people who are hard of hearing or deaf, or maybe people who are just distracted, you know. Not all accommodations are just for people who have special requirements or special accommodations. You know, those accommodations can help people who are completely able-bodied and just want to, you know, participate in a slightly distracted environment. You know, how many people have missed one of the calls from their FC and had to like ask in chat where they needed to go or this, that, and the other? Having a text chat and stuff like that is so helpful to stopping things like that from happening. And if you're the kind of person who can put their hands up and volunteer to take part in that, it's going to really help everyone in your community. And trust me, it will be noticed. People love people who help. You know, that's what people do.
Yes. I'm glad we're in such a supportive space here. Obviously, we have people here who probably do many different things inside of EVE. So I just want to throw this out to anyone here. What can you do when you're in different roles? Like, how can a CEO help? How can Fleet Commander, or even just a regular community member, just someone who wants to try to make this place as inclusive as possible? What can they do to assist with that?
I think the number one thing that you can do as anyone in EVE is to set a good example. Ultimately, that's what people base their actions on, is what they see other people around them doing. And if you are willing to, as was said earlier, highlight toxicity, say that it doesn't make you feel comfortable, and be unafraid to be your authentic self, then it will help others around them to come out of their shell and be authentic and talk about things that impact them negatively so that you can improve it, or talk about good things that other people in your corporation are doing which helps them to engage so that you can facilitate that and put more energy towards it. Often you don't see the things that are being done that will help your group to be an inclusive space unless you ask. And, ask. Try and get people to tell you what you can do to be better. That's all we can do to improve.
I think too also, I think calling out the toxicity, but I think a little goes a long way. You don't have to write a paragraph about how something isn't appropriate of any stretch of the imagination, but just saying like, hey, that's not cool, or let's move on from this topic. Like those small phrases can actually really redirect and let people reflect. I don't think anybody here is a bad person. I don't think people playing Eve are bad people. But I think sometimes people kind of get into the trash talk, they get into the banter, and they don't realize like, hey, maybe I said something that wasn't really chill. And then also your own self-reflection of saying, hey, maybe that wasn't really cool. Call yourself out on it. Like, oh, I said that word or I did that thing, and that wasn't really nice of me, so let me try to do better going forward.
Really, a little tip for community management building 101 is it starts from the top. If you are the CEO, if you are the head honcho, you're the very top person. If you are acting in bad ways, if you are dragging people into the politic talks, the religion, the transphobia, the racism, everyone else is going to see what you're doing and they're going to think it's okay. So if you start from the top and you provide an example to everyone below you, they're going to emulate you. I have 100 people on my community team. 100 FCs and ambassadors and whatnot. Nobody below us ever talks about any of this stuff. We have finally, after 4 years, gotten to the 6th person we've ever had to ban off of our server. And and this is because we set the example, and it's very uncomfortable when people come in and they start that type of talk. It's just like, people don't do that, and they either go away or they just conform to the rest of us. So just don't do it.
To kind of like piggyback off that a bit too, when you start setting the precedent that you don't have toxicity, you don't have those kinds of things, you'll start to notice too that not only are you trying to enforce these ideas, but a lot of your community members and just people playing the game will end up saying the same things to each other, right? Because a community can't be entirely non-toxic because just like one person isn't, right? You kind of want to foster that throughout the player base. And once you kind of like set those standards, other people will tend to follow them or even to call it out themselves, I've noticed. And that toxicity, I think, not only goes to avoiding being weird in comms about political stuff and things like that, but something I've kind of noticed too that I think drives a lot of people away from games like this is the concept of like instrumental play and how you have to be playing the game like very, very well and very, very correctly, right? That's one of the things that stopped me from joining a group for so long. And so it kind of bleeds down into also like just being respectful in general of what other people are doing in their other gameplay, right? Because like we mentioned earlier, like we were all new at one point and everyone was at some point. You had to start playing the game to be a veteran player, right? And shouting down at someone or being like generally toxic about another person's play is like they might have the ability to be an alliance tournament winning player, but if they just feel clowned on and shut down, whether that be because they aren't clicking good enough or they're queer or something like that, then they won't ever be able to reach that potential. So if you do want to succeed, whether it be in building a community or playing the game, I think that making sure you're just kind of consistently reinforcing this idea that we're all working together and trying towards a goal as a group, and you don't you don't have to be a jerk about things, basically. I think that ends up having a lot more of an impact than people would think in the long run. Yeah.
Also, if you're like me and you happen to be a cis male, don't be afraid to use your privilege a little bit and, say your pronouns. Be proud about, what your pronouns are and use that as a jumping off board to allow other people to share their pronouns. It's in Eve, there is often a very big assumption that everyone you're going to play with is male. And looking out into this audience, I can tell you that that is not a fact. You know, so don't be afraid to do that. Don't think it makes you weird. It empowers other people in your space to feel comfortable. You know, be willing to ask those questions and be the leader in having those conversations.
And off of that conversation here, what would have the most significant positive impact on your experience in Eve? And this can be anything from gameplay to community dynamics or even accessibility features. Like, what can we do?
Gender change in-game. I run the women's Discord, and that's like the #1 feature. So my character actually in-game is male. So if you search Rain Chocolate or Chocolate Rain, they're both male. Well, that's a choice by me. Some people really want to change who their character is. So if I ever had that, regardless of like my real life, there's no option for that. But some people truly really made their characters who they were at a point in time. Eve is 20 years old. Like, just let us do gender change. Let it like make the clothing all one gender. Let us have hats and hair and stuff. And it's just one of those things. It's really small, probably small to us as players, but like on the dev side, probably larger work, but players desperately want it. Yeah, especially the clothing.
Why can't I use the men's clothing? The name change and gender change thing has been asked for.
Yeah, name and gender change, yep. Especially, I don't know if you guys know, some people put their real life name as their in-game name, and it's kind of hilarious, but also kind of weird when you think of like some of the dark sides of Eve. So that would be good, maybe in those like weird exceptions, not like in the let me change my name to scam everybody exceptions.
One of the things that I'd really like to see is the community team get more involved in the Discord communities. Right now, if there is any problems, it has to happen in game in order to get someone banned or something happen. We've had people in other communities tell Eve players to go kill themselves and whatnot and have inappropriate names, and it's just wild to me that they can continue to persist because it just didn't happen in the video game itself.
Shout out to Broadcast for Reps.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Give me my goddamn cat ears.
Yes. Representing, but yes.
To me personally, as a woman who likes playing video games, and it's also extremely socially awkward, any initiative that makes me feel like welcomed and safe in a playing environment is always crucial. So yeah, like feeling safer to speak up in chat comments or in a Discord server, all that is crucial to me. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to some of the comments and asks that I've just heard. So a lot of my role here is I'm not saying a lot. I'm here to listen, and I sit in a pretty privileged seat, which is the game design director. I get to set priorities on things, and inclusion is super important to me. So hearing everyone here ask for things like changing your character, changing your name, that means a lot, and I love hearing from all of you. And this isn't like I'm not setting any timelines or dates here, but like, hey, I'm prioritizing the next expansion right now, and I did put that on there. So I don't know if it's gonna happen, but I'm gonna make it happen when we can. And there's weird technical reasons why the close and stuff works, but that's on me to figure out, and the whole team. So yeah, talk to me. I love hearing this stuff, and I'm also repping for cat ears. So I'm just gonna say I'm on Team Cat Ears. So I'm trying, okay?
Yes. Yeah, and to continue a little bit in this line here, what role does accessibility play in your long-term vision for Eve? This is more on the dev side, this question here. And do you foresee any upcoming initiatives or improvements in this area in the game?
Yeah, so just recently we had some students from the University of Iceland come and visit us at the office, and I had the chance to talk to this young woman who works with the Icelandic community of blind people. And she had some really interesting feedback. And I think that as the UI UX team, we would do such good improvements by just inviting more diverse people into our player research sessions. I think that because we're working on very complex features, oftentimes we focus on our very specific target and we want to make those players happy. But just making the testers group more diverse, going outside of just the target that we're aiming for would take us long distances in making the game more accessible.
Yeah, I think for me, like, inclusion only really works in game development if you make it a thing. Like, you make it a part of your process in everything that you do. And like, I can say right now, we're not doing well enough. Like, we can do much better than we are. And game development is this like complex Rube Goldberg machine of like this perpetual motion Rube Goldberg machine that we're like constantly developing things, and it's all complicated. So sometimes it's hard to figure out where it fits into that. And so for me, it's like building these processes, making space for it, and when these things come up, being an advocate for it. And so for me, the ongoing effort is really in our design process, in our design space, trying to make sure we continue to make space for this and bake it into as much of what we do as possible, and to continue to take feedback from everyone about what we can do better. So and actually prioritize that.
Yeah, and I think that question is really good, and it's something that I hope the leaders of the community that are here in this panel take away from this session is, what is your long-term plan for inclusivity within your community? What are you doing to drive, new people and to make people from different backgrounds feel comfortable within your organization? Because that's what's going to bring the diversity of perspectives and the diversity of experience and excellence that's going to make your group, no matter what it is, no matter what it does, do the best it possibly can within the game. Attract as much talent as you can and you'll win.
Anyone else in here that wants to add something to this, or anything that you're wishing for in particular for the game?
Honestly, the biggest ones for me are the we run into the gender change and name change quite a lot, but I don't think I have too much else to add right now on that.
Well, we still have a little bit of time left, so I'm going to throw out one last question at you before we move over to questions from the crowd. How important is it to you to see characters, storylines, and mechanics that reflect diverse identities and experiences inside of EVE?
I think it's a really, really big part of EVE. EVE, unlike any other MMO, it's not like, we have expansions and there's story and things like that, and we have drifters going on right now and lore, but it's very, very different from logging into like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy or something where all of the content you're engaging in is extremely prescribed. EVE is, it's a sandbox MMO, which means that ultimately the story is very player driven. And when you sign up for EVE, and it's kind of why I think a lot of people end up using their real names at certain points in time, is that you're putting yourself into space and seeing what you can do in New Eden, right? So when these stories happen, not only from like players and what different groups have done, but any sort of in-universe lore as well, the more like inclusive and diverse it can be, I think it ultimately is better, because to some extent you're seeing yourself kind of out there in space as like that pilot. You're not you're just killing like a raid boss or something. You're breaking new barriers, I suppose. So that kind of like representation across the board, I think, is very important for myself and a lot of other players as well.
I think it keeps the stories interesting, especially from a lore sense. It's kind of boring if you have the same, I don't know, cookie cutter characters. Like, I mean, we even have like the 4 main races, but now we're actually introducing more and more races and types of, I would say, peoples and societies within the EVE lore. The other thing I want to point out too is that's kind of like the lore, the dev side, but from like the player side, I think it's important to keep in mind too. If I'm going to join your group and there's 50 of you, but there are no women, I think that's a huge red flag, because like, statistically it should work out, but also like you should have more representation than just like all men. Or I also think of like the LGBT community, like chances are statistically you probably have a woman in there, but she's hiding or doesn't feel comfortable being herself. And I think that's true for a lot of EVE, and yeah.
So I'm going to now give you in the audience the chance to ask any of these fantastic panelists some questions. So this in particular, you know, there's something you want to know about any features like for like things like little wish list, I guess I should say. I can't make any promises, or how to foster inclusivity in your communities. What can you actually do? Like if you want to actually pick some of these amazing people's brains, this is your chance to do so. Yes.
So on the idea of like gender change, name change, I'm wondering, so I remember Hilmar had the idea and the design focus that people want to be playing as not a spaceship, but an avatar piloting a spaceship. And when you implemented recently the new character sheet with the character like actually presented there, I felt like that was a really good like way of interacting with your character in that way. What other type of implementations or ideas do you have for that same concept of introducing your avatar into the world, maybe having it in Eve Vanguard, maybe revisiting walking in stations even?
Who wants walking in stations? Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a debate that we like crack open from time to time, and it's like, yeah, but do people want that? So like, I'm still pretty new. Like I've been here for a year, and I'm learning a lot about Eve Online and developing and working on Eve. And you made a really good point, and I can't tell you what that answer actually is, but I think like when I'm playing, the representation of who I am feels weak to me right now. Like I don't feel like I have presence in space. And so that's something I absolutely want to pursue in design in the future, is like how can I feel like more connected to who I am and who I represent beyond just my ships and the skins that I make and things like that. So it's a great question. I don't have anything on there. I love the enthusiasm for walking in stations. Maybe, I don't know, that's a big maybe. It's not a no. But I absolutely am looking and thinking about what do we do and how do we better allow people to represent themselves.
You said it all.
Okay. Next question.
I would ask. You said about the game director said about removing content emissions, and I've never played the game, so I'm just asking what kind of content was like removed emissions that's like inclusive, like.
Yeah, so I mean, again, like 22-year-old something game and dark science fiction. There's a lot of stuff that in the past deals with race and slavery and other concepts like that. And quite frankly, there's been a few missions that just a little bit crossed the line. Now I think there's, we love Eve for the dark science fiction universe it is, but I want us to keep revisiting that older content and making sure it's relevant and like meaningful. Because sometimes it just doesn't feel like it feels dark to be dark, and I'd rather just get rid of those things and replace them with something more meaningful. So it's really that it's things dealing with like slavery, racism, and worse topics that I don't even know if I want to say on stage. So yeah.
Yeah, I think something that CCP has been really good at in recent times is making sure that whenever a dark topic is being covered, that generally it's for a purpose. It's not just to be like, oh, look at us, we're so edgy and hardcore. It's actually to make a point about it and to explore the question in more detail. And I do want to thank CCP for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think to that end, it is examining like when we run into that content, like is it making a point, and are we saying something, or like if someone new comes in and they see this, are they just gonna see that? And yeah.
Hello? It's on okay. Okay. I'm sorry this is not the right place for this, but you were talking about races and such, and in this world where we have so much technology, including cloning and all kinds of biological stuff, why are the races so locked to like the cultures, and like why can't I be like a Minmatar, but play somebody that looks like Baron Harkonnen? Because we're like, I get that like a lot of this is like the culture is like there's the Amar culture, the mid-Mutter culture, the Galenti culture, but we're supposed to be sort of above that. So I'm curious why we're still so locked to like the races belonging to this culture, this fashion belong to this culture. Like, why can't we go nuts?
That is a great question. Personally, I'd love to let you all go nuts. I think, again, that's another place where we need to just re-examine, like, what is the purpose of this? And is it serving that purpose in a world building and narrative perspective, or mechanically even? But why can't someone in this world of, like, genetic engineering and cloning and stuff look like whatever they want to is a really good question. I think we can do better.
This is a community question. I'm also in like a no politics kind of community, and occasionally we get people who think, oh, well, I'm bi, so that means that I can't mention that. How do you make it clear to people that they aren't the politics that there should be none of?
So the excuse me, especially within current political environments for a lot of countries, the personal and the political starts to get very like entwined, and kind of I guess the way we've looked at it and the way we've dealt with it is that we do actually have like a special like community channel that's like opt-in if people want to actually discuss like political happenings. But as far as like identity related stuff goes, we tend to I guess, sorry, wording's a bit stumbly here, but I think the best way I can phrase it is that I don't view myself as a political entity, right? I'm not like a bill or a law or something. So when, you know, interacting and talking to people, kind of viewing myself in that manner helps me speak. And then as far as other people, it's more about preventing, I think, kind of offhand questions and things like that being targeted or directed towards folks with non-standard identities, as opposed to simply having that identity, right? Because again, especially like I live in the U.S., and so that at the moment is a very, you know, trans identities are a very hot topic. But it doesn't like, it doesn't need to be, right? And when you're living that reality as a person, like I said, I don't feel that I am a political object. So as a result, it's about trying to foster just open communication, I guess, and not allowing other people to question that and be like, oh, well, you know, I heard your voice, I didn't think you were a girl, blah, 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 and things like that are kind of what you're trying to just avoid. If that answers the question, kind of, I guess. It's sort of a cop-out to say I don't see myself as political, but it technically is, so,
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you as a human being and your existence isn't political, right? There's like a difference between like openly being trans or queer, talking about like partners and things like that, and trying to discuss like what bills are currently being passed in your state or something, right? Those are two very different things in my mind. So yeah, I think it's good to be open and to kind of reinforce that like simply like being queer or anything like that isn't it doesn't need to inherently be political to be queer or be any other sort of divergency.
And you had something to add to this.
Yeah, so I think when you say like if you had rules or something, you said no politics, I would do like no IRL politics, and then you could expand that to say like real world happenings, things in the news, etc. Because then that way people know that like if something happens in Eve on Reddit, they can still discuss it. As for like identity, I know, I think they'll mimic what leadership is doing. So if you say, hey, here's my name, she, her, and then I put like, I don't know, I'm cis and straight or something like that, then they'll say, oh, well, they identified themselves that, they called it out, so therefore it should be okay if I call myself out for that. So then that way they know.
So for Eve Rookies, I had the luxury of building this from the ground up in the shape that I wanted it. I didn't have to come into a community and try to change the culture. So with people's identities, because we don't talk about real life politics at all, actually, we don't talk about even in-game politics. We want players to focus on the stuff in game, not what's going on. So people feel comfortable about talking about their identities because we just don't talk about real life politics. So the two just stay excluded from each other.
So I see we're running low on time, but I saw there was already a microphone passed. It's up to you. Do we have time? One more question. Okay, then one last question here.
Okay, then I guess it's my turn now. I just want to maybe come up with an idea for everybody loves walking in stations, as we realized. Maybe we scale that a bit down and just bring back the captain's quarter. Because I want to see my ship like a super carrier in a keepstar. And I want to stand beside my ship. I want to get connected to my character. And also, I'm liking the idea from the person over there. I didn't saw it, who it was, or what was the exact question. I don't know it yet. But I want to be more connected with my character. More customization, more together with your character. Or even if you can go to some place like a cantina, for example, to bring in the Star Wars lore. Go into the cantina, sit on a desk, speak to somebody that is right next to you, and maybe buy them a drink for a couple of whiskeys.
Yeah, and I think that really just touches on a great aspect of Eve and the character generator, which is that it lets people explore their identities and it allows people to express who they are in ways that they might not be able to do in real life. And that's the power of Eve to drive inclusivity and to drive self-discovery, which is really meaningful.
Anything final to add there before I wrap things up?
Thank you for the idea.
Yeah. Okay then, we're unfortunately out of time, but I want to thank you all for coming here today and for all of your great questions. I'd also like to extend a special thanks to all of our panelists, especially our wonderful players here who joined us, and also to all of the people that helped make this happen who might not be here on stage. There's quite a few of them sitting out here in this room, all listed up here. But yes, it's been wonderful having you all, and if you're also interested in learning more about diversity, equity, inclusion, anything that we're doing on the company side of things, right outside this door, that's where the recruitment booth is, if you want to learn more about it on the company side. But yeah, other than that, thank you everybody, and fly safe.